Guys, City claims the MP spoke up in opposition of an RCMP discrimination bill. And the City of Toronto bylaw officers under investigation following an interaction with two black women. Well, as those details at the top of the hour.
You don't feel like that to black women can interact with them. They can act with each other. They can act on your fucking. It's an interracial activity right there.
Deal finalized between Major League Baseball and its players by the weekend. This after Commissioner Manfred met face-to-face with union head Tony Clark on Monday night in Arizona. The latest proposal from the owners is for a 60-game season starting July 19th, with the players receiving their full prorated salaries.
They're full prorate. What happens to the other?
Serious discussions on Thursday, and if they get a deal done by Friday, players would report spring training by June the 29th and get 3 full weeks.
So we got there's racism in the appeal region. Black students are far more likely to be
COVID-19. However, the ATP announced their new summer schedule.
And have the cops called them by staff. So specifically, it's not some other kid or a parent calling the cops. At least that might do it.
In their return to Premier League action,
President Ramaphosa, South Africa, gave like a 30-minute fucking speech.
45 past every hour, or anytime at sportsnet.ca/59.
680 News Time, 10:47.
Hear that? That's the sound of heavy rain making its way through cracks in your foundation, dripping down the walls, and your newly finished basement. That's the sound of floodwater backing up the floor drain, fountaining out of your drain cover, and covering your laundry room in sewage. If you don't like the sounds of a basement flood, find out what you can do to prevent it. Go to toronto.ca/basement flooding.
I live in the tallest ass building I can find.
It's still important to
So
protect
it's like
United
Titanic,
Canada
that shit
Inc.
those
is one
poor
of the
people
leading
underneath
suppliers in Canada for medical
absorb all
supplies and
that.
are here to serve you with their protective face masks. They carry a wide variety of face masks, from their medical grade face masks
Yeah,
that
you
are
carry
made
it,
in Canada
that's
to
nice.
non-medical
Can we
face
just
masks starting at just $27.99 for
One
a pack
more
of 50.
question. There we
Order
go.
today at
President
UnitedCanadaInc.com and get free
Cyril.
shipping anywhere in Canada. Together, united.
Anyway, Ramaphosa addresses the nation full speech. Maybe I'll wait.
It's probably fair to say some parents are a little unsure about sending their kids back to school this fall. The kids have been working hard on new recommendations for the province. 680's Mona Kretschy reports.
This report from Sick Kids Hospital is comprehensive, looking at the impacts of the pandemic on children, physically, but also mentally, socially, and how it's affecting learning. Sick Kids President Dr. Ronald Cohen says, when you consider the science shows that cases of COVID-19 are extremely low in children and that they are not super spreaders of the virus, schools should reopen in September.
The impact
we won't get sick from it. Fuck
the developmental health of children not going to school, not being exposed to
you know how horrible school
and not
is?
being with their friends and peers is something that myself and many of my colleagues in pediatrics are literally losing sleep over.
But it comes with a series of recommendations. Dr. Michelle Science says
Tell you how
keeping
great
masks
school,
on
they want to go back to
students
school,
is
they're
not
lying.
You can imagine in younger children, masks can be
Kids learn from
irritating, which
early
may lead
age
to
not
increased
tell you what they
touching of
really
their
want.
face or eyes or nose, which could increase the risk of infection.
Premier Ford says an announcement on whether schools will open will be coming down the line, but he says he will follow the lead of medical experts, including Sick Kids Hospital.
I told you this picture's Rob Ford is man.
680 News is working for you, trying to get answers to any questions you have about COVID-19.
Why is my eyes
Medical officer of health,
bumpier?
Dr. Vanina Dubé joined the 680 News web team for
Why is my ass itchy?
What will it take for Toronto to enter stage 2 of reopening?
So
Toronto's
why is
Associate
my
Medical
ass
Officer of Health
Google
says
will
it's
give
not
you
about
an
hitting
answer to
just
that
a
one.
single milestone. There are a number of indicators, we call them, that we're looking at. A lot of it has to do with the activity of the virus. We still have a number of cases.
Okay,
You know what? We have per population is still higher than other parts of the province. And we want to be able to see that those are really coming down, you know, that our 7-day average shows that they're declining, to feel more comfortable in opening. That being said, it's also a decision of the provincial government as well.
You can find today's full COVID-19 Q&A session with Dr. Vanina Dubé on our website, 680news.com. Phil Gorman, 680 News.
The understand is Android, now Windows, and it thinks it's a cell phone. And this mouse doesn't have a right or middle button. You know, it's an Apple. Why does it have a middle? There should be three or what?
Eastbound 401 delays still through the construction approaching Guelph line. Only the left lane is open here. The ramp off the highway to Guelph line has been closed. Trafalgar ramps to the eastbound 401 now blocked off. Mississauga Road and the Mavis ramps as well. We have construction at Dixon.
Where's your dog?
Lanes blocked off, and it's a little heavy.
Yeah, maybe I should press play.
100 days since the first case of coronavirus was identified in South Africa.
That's the literal beginning of the...
For 100 days since the first case of coronavirus was identified in South Africa. For 100 days, we have been living in the shadow of one of the greatest threats to global health in over 100 years. The disease and the measures we have taken to fight it have caused massive disruption in the lives of our people, bringing our economy to a standstill and threatening the livelihoods of millions of South Africans. So far, it has cost our nation the lives of 1,674 people. In the midst of this life-destroying pandemic, we are greatly encouraged by news this week of a breakthrough in the treatment of COVID-19. A study by the University of Oxford in Britain has found that the drug dexamethasone, which is...
No, because the timing's on wrong. It's 34. No, they're going to tell us a bunch of shit about... Jagmeet Singh and the Black Quebecois. Oh, they're having racist spits and spats in the fucking parliament. And that'll be in only a few minutes. So this is 34 minutes straight. I did try listening to the whole thing. It gets good. The idea that Africa is backwards or whatever. Well, that's propaganda from the people that want to exploit the resources. Come on, go away.
Coming up at the top of the hour, the latest on how the federal government avoided a mid-pandemic snap election, why Jagmeet Singh was kicked out of the House of Commons, and how the city of Toronto is dealing with allegations of racism against a bylaw officer.
No, allegations of racism. Hold on. No, bylaw.
From Don Valley North Toyota for the past nearly 50 years, they've introduced many safety protocols within their facility. They're ready when you are. Right now, lease a new Camry at 0% or enjoy other incredible offers on their most popular models. Choose from an outstanding selection at Canada's #1 volume Toyota dealer. Visit DonValleyNorthToyota.com. To the class of 2020, who had their plans turned upside down.
Yesterday, I got coffee. Yeah, the browser did the same thing. Bring the tabs to spit.
On 680 News.
Send in your advice, shout-outs, and words of wisdom.
To the graduating class on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram and tag 680 News.
All this week, we'll be sharing inspiring messages to unite the class of 2020.
Grad Week on 680 News.
Get all the details at 680news.com.
The TTC board has voted unanimously to make masks mandatory on the transit system. TTC CEO Rick Leary says although the masks will be mandatory, some exceptions will be made.
The position of the TTC when they made the decision to recommend making it mandatory, we were very clear last week publicly that not everybody has the ability to wear a mask, and we clearly outlined the areas and where we know, whether it's children under the age of 2 years, people with respiratory, people without the ability to put one on or take one off.
The new rules come into effect July 22nd.
I love the way all these assholes are walking around looking at other people. You owe me for you to wear a certain piece of clothing. No, that's not what's going on.
Disorganized, confused, don't know where to start?
We do. Call Mark Feldstein, Chartered Professional Accountants.
Does this have to do with a combination of fucking blood disorders and viral infections?
Call Mark Feldstein and Associates Chartered Accountants now. Visit markfeldstein.ca.
I'll puke out everything, and I won't feel sick anymore. And later it'll happen again.
But hugging's easy. Loving's easy. And baby drops are easy too. Simply apply just one drop where baby feeds. There's no taste, so it doesn't interfere with feeding. Pediatricians recommend vitamin D daily for breastfed infants. Baby D drops, the sunshine vitamin in just one drop.
10:56. Now the 680 News Business Report. Here's Richard Southern. Good evening. We got the latest inflation numbers in for May, and again, inflation pulled back even more in the month of May. It was down 0.4%. A lot of that had to do with gasoline prices being lower than they were a year ago, but this report continued to point towards what you and I know, and that prices at the grocery store are still going up.
But they exclude those from the numbers, so it's irrelevant what those numbers are. They're included in the numbers, and that's they are, which
price of carrots up 29% on average since January. Macaroni up 19%, potatoes up 16%, canned soup up 15%.
Is it based on what? You're just randomly giving food categories
at the start of the year. Right, meantime, we got the latest
on the Sonder. We're going to know
the rental car company that's filed for bankruptcy protection. These guys have been around since like 1911. They started out renting Model Ts. That's how old they were. Anyways, today Hertz is scrapping a $500 million share offering Anthony Colby van.
My grandfather scrapped so many models. He said 200 to 300 lost count. Some more than 2, less than 300. The way he does things, it was probably well over 3. He's lying about his income. Because in California, see, the Model T's last so goddamn long.
Due to the coronavirus pandemic.
Stock closed higher at $2.
The Model A came out,
the video
and all these,
conferencing
at the
platform
time,
Zoom
it's
announcing
still
tonight
rich
that its
people
reverse course
Hollywood, whatever the fuck
provide
would have been called back
end-to-end
then.
encryption for all customers, not just
So
for the ones that pay for subscription.
Ugly ass old cars parked in front of nice houses with nice new cars next to them. You know, all that away for free, not worth nothing. Everybody has one, and they never stop running. Sell it to who? They're not going to throw it out per se. It's not like today. You have to take them away for free and scrap them.
70 to 26,199.
You said that in front of some people one time. The one guy like, oh, don't say that I love
Canadian
those.
dollar 73.69 cents US. This is 680.
See ya.
Podcast Chatter that matters. Thanks to the incredible support of
that's not what
RBC,
you call this. Not when you change your name again.
Small businesses.
Fresno, Ontario owns Sur made-to-measure menswear. Jeudi Becker, international fashion expert, says he's missing half the market.
Women are really creating these well-constructed quality uniforms now. It fits never right. They can never get something to fit right.
It's been on the
uniform, right? Okay, uniform. Horses and horns. That's a Pegasus. That's not a. How can you get uniform and a Pegasus?
Small business matters.
A zebra.
Walmart is now rolling back prices on
like a
thousands of
tiger,
everyday essential items to help your family stretch every dollar. Save $1 on Banana Boat sunscreen lotion or spray. Now only $8.97. Walmart.
When I was a kid, one of the big things they were promoting was the snow tires.
And now look at your regional weather conditions in Mississauga. It's 18 degrees at Markham, much of the same there right now downtown. 22 degrees with a clear sky. The News Watch never stops. 680 News is CFTR AM Toronto. 680 News time. 11 o'clock.
我要付刀叉。Wow, don't cut yourself.
Yeah, I forgot how to.
Here are Scott Burnett and Kate
what?
Good evening, this is Wednesday, June 17th. And for Kate Lee, I'm Tim Chapman. Here's what's making news right now. Trudeau government lives to see another day as it survives a confidence vote in the House of Commons. The Prime Minister also vowing to deliver what he calls a federal economic snapshot amid this pandemic.
The sound is up here, the
NDP leader refusing to apologize for calling an MP racist after they blocked a motion to combat racism in the RCMP.
Well, but here's the thing, is that motion going to do anything? Because if you just pass it, oh, look, we did something, then that's no better than anything. So is the fucking block of a racist? I thought the Bloc Québécois was an oppressed minority group based not on race but linguistic and political affiliation. The Beijing Hour, advocate to be among first to benefit from China's COVID-19 vaccine.
Now the news. I'm Shane Bigham. President Xi Jinping's promising that China will continue to do whatever it can to support the COVID-19 response in Africa. The two sides held a video summit on solidarity against the novel coronavirus on Wednesday. Xi Jinping's calling on both sides to work together to build a China-Africa community of health for all.
Construction out there. Let's just talk about the delays that we're seeing. Just heads up as well, we have a bunch of stretches of the express lanes shut down across the GTA and some stretches of the collectors too, but we're only going to mention the stuff that's causing problems. Eastbound 401, it's heavy still, approaching while flying. Only the left lane is open for maintenance. Metro 400, the two right lanes are closed, so once again, not very many lanes open. And we're seeing slowdowns here. Approaching Islington to Allen, they've closed the express lanes down, the eastbound 401, so you're in the collectors, which is heavy with the volume. And then inside of here, approaching Kiel, we have a crash in the collectors, left lane's blocked off. Police have just arrived. Here's a couple of transport trucks bumping into each other. Eastbound 401, Eastern Harmony to Curtis Road, we have construction, two left lanes blocked off. Still heavy though. Westbound 401 has Kennedy in the collectors. They've got the right lane blocked off, and then approaching Ward into the 404, the collector lanes themselves have been shut down. Approaching the Allen in the express, it's a little slow. Two left lanes are blocked off through this construction zone. And at 427, again, same delays. Two right lanes have been shut down for overnight construction work. Southbound 400 looking much better, but the left lane's blocked through King Road, so you're going to have a little bit of a slowdown through there. Looks like southbound 427 Brasburn transfer into the collectors has been closed, and eastbound 403 at Dundas has been shut down for overnight construction. So you're going to get forced off at Dundas. You can take Dundas to Winston Churchill and jump back on the eastbound 403 from there. Do you have questions about COVID-19? 680 News is working to get you the answers you need. Ask us anytime at 416-872-6800, and we'll work to get you the answer. Next report at 11:11 with the forecast. Here's
I remember now, Subway, motherfucker.
Another clear night, another mainly sunny day tomorrow. We're heading down to 15 degrees for the low, and still the humidity is going to be in check tomorrow. So nice and low, 28 degrees with just a few high thin clouds out and about. But for the most part, it's mainly sunny. Tonight, we're down to a low 15 degrees.
Right now, downtown Toronto, 22 degrees with a clear sky.
Don't worry about the flu makes the news from a different country. That's a big deal. Don't worry about it. Immigration there is illegal.
Has avoided a snap election by surviving a confidence test amid the COVID-19 pandemic.
680's Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney joins us with more.
The Trudeau Liberals have avoided defeat thanks to the NDP, which teamed up with the minority government to approve $87 billion in program spending amid this pandemic. The Prime Minister secured the support by meeting New Democrat demands to extend the emergency response benefit. If the Liberals had lost this vote, the government would have fallen and we could have been facing a COVID-19 election. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promising to deliver a snapshot of federal finances on July 8th.
This will give Canadians a picture of where our economy is right now, how our response compares to that of other countries, and what we can expect for the months to come.
But Trudeau stresses this will not be a normal fiscal update since the government can't predict what may happen in the years ahead. The Bloc Québécois have been calling for a fiscal update.
Where the fuck are you from?
Rosedale.
You bastard, shut up.
In the middle of summer, in order to have people not watch it while they will be having a beer around the barbecue.
Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill. The Ford government has
His
passed
body,
legislation that
so
temporarily suspends commercial evictions during the pandemic. According to a statement, the government passed a bill that protects commercial tenants from being locked out or having their assets seized due to the negative impacts of coronavirus. The legislation is retroactive to May 1st and lasts until the end of August. It applies to businesses that are eligible for federal or provincial rent assistance for evictions.
680 News Time, 11:05.
Are we still capping at
Nearly 5 years and more than $2 million later, Canada
what in the woods 22 years ago, pussy? You think we forget?
Norway and Ireland making the cut instead.
You have the number shown on the side of the truck.
Canada's ambassador to the United Nations, Marc-André Blanchard, says these races are always competitive, and this one was no different.
A race like the one we were in, with three great countries that have a lot to bring to the world. It's a difficult choice.
The Trudeau Liberals spent more than $2 million on the unsuccessful campaign, prompting outgoing Conservative leader Andrew Scheer to tweet out an image of a child swinging and missing at a golf ball. But John Curtin, an international relations professor at the University of Toronto, says there are larger issues in the grand scheme of things.
There's a great many foreign policy professionals who are using the word devastating and humiliating. It is none of that. It is a disappointment, but it's not a surprise.
Curtin says Canada has far more influence on the world stage as a G7 and G20 member. I'm
like a G's.
Here with Home News Radio 680 News at 11:06. After calling a fellow MP racist, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh was removed from the House of Commons today for the remainder.
Oh, they're fellow MPs. They're just MPs. They're fellow MPs.
For a motion on systemic racism in the RCMP, but it was blocked. He says Bloc Québécois MP Alain Thérain is the one responsible, and he stands by his words.
In the context of Indigenous people dying, in the context of violence against Indigenous people and Black people, in that context, someone who votes against that is a racist. Yes.
While speaking with reporters, Singh became emotional, choking up as he asked, why can't we act to save lives? The Bloc formally complained to the Speaker, but Singh refused to apologize, and the Speaker of the House ordered him removed from the chamber for the day.
He's the brown white guy. Because if it was one of us, there would have been a fist fight. We'd be in jail right now. Yeah.
Protesters started marching at the Brampton Courthouse and ended up at the Peel District School Board building. It comes on the heels of a damning report that pointed to some racist practices at schools in Peel region.
With my kids and how young they are, that there's a possibility of them experiencing that same thing. And this is why I'm here today, to ensure that I'm advocating for them and that they're here to witness that, because I want them to know that they have a voice and that they can speak up.
The report alleges that staff disproportionately suspend Black students and call police on them for non-criminal matters.
A city bylaw officer under investigation after two Black women accused him of racially profiling them.
Deborah Ampong and Eva Alamesa say when they arrived at the park on Tuesday morning, they saw the gates to the track were open, with about a dozen or so people inside. They thought it was okay to use, but just over an hour later, two white teens who were also using the track told them they should all clear out because a bylaw officer had arrived.
They hopped over standing there, and we watched him not ask them for their IDs, but the moment we were about to hop over the fence, he uttered these exact words. He said, "Did you know that you two are trespassing? And if this were my home, I'd be licensed to shoot you both."
Eventually, they say he was going to just let them leave, but when Deborah pulled up with her car, the bylaw officer wanted to take a picture of her license plate. The city is investigating the incident with input from the newly created anti-Black racism unit, but they're looking for a neutral third party to lead the investigation.
You can tell by the way the reporters keep repeating that had to be the guys who are, I want to take a picture of your place. You can tell the guy must have been like specifically saying that or something. Making a big scene. Like this fucking idiot at the nuclear place next door. His phone is the size of his fucking mug. He's hiding behind a phone pole.
County District Attorney Paul Howard says former Atlanta police officer Garrett Rolfe has been charged with felony murder in connection with 27-year-old Rayshard Brooks' death.
He's also charged in the arrest warrant with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon.
Rolfe, who has already been fired from the Atlanta police force, is facing 11 charges in total. The other officer on scene, Devin
Buddy was going to try and hurt you. What he was already compliant, wasn't he? Well, he wasn't doing everything exactly as I said. No, because he's not your fucking sex slave.
Witness in the case. The district attorney says that this is the 9th time that an Atlanta police officer has been prosecuted for homicide. He believes this is the first time a police officer has offered to testify against a member of his unit. I'm Phil Martino.
Was killed during the mass shooting in central Nova Scotia in April are seeking to launch a class action lawsuit against the RCMP in the province, arguing that police failed to adequately protect and inform the public during the attacks. In documents filed in Nova Scotia Supreme Court, the plaintiffs alleging the RCMP failed to send timely and appropriate warnings to members of the communities where a gunman killed 22 people in 5 communities.
How about shooting at the fire hall?
The RCMP and the province have yet to file a statement of defense.
This is 680 News.
Now, the 680 News gas price update. Info predicts the price of gas will rise 1 cent at midnight to 101.9 cents a liter at most GTA stations. 680 News time, 11:10.
Make the most of what comes next with a bank account that gives you more. With the Scotiabank Ultimate Package,
It's not bad. I had those
to
lights
your
about as long as these shells.
unlimited Interact e-transfer transactions,
6 years.
and a $300 welcome bonus. So make the most of what comes next with the Scotiabank Ultimate Package. For a limited time, conditions apply. Visit scotiabank.com/ultimate300.
Yeah, so you can liquid is fucking warm your body to clear up viral infections and shit.
It's really not a fun drive out there in some zones that we have construction happening. This report brought to you by Operation Smile. So eastbound 401 approaching Guelph line, still a slow drive. Through Trafalgar as well. 2 right lanes are blocked off Trafalgar, Mississauga Road, and the Mavis ramps to the eastbound 401 shut down. At Dixon on the eastbound 401 and beyond. Dixon up to approaching Islington, really. Before it splits off into express and collectors, 3 left lanes are blocked off, and it's a heavy go. Through Keele into collectors, we have the left lane blocked in the approaching Keele here.
You guys see that red
this
flash
is where
on
a crash. Looks like a couple tractor trailers have bumped into each other.
Oh,
Everyone is in the collectors through here. I tell you to avoid this, get into the express, but you can't. They shut down the express lanes from east of the 400 right through to approaching the Allen.
Jesus Christ.
Eastbound 401 slows east of Harmony to Curtis Road still. We have 2 left lanes blocked off for overnight roadwork. Westbound 401 through the Nielsen, the Markham, and the northbound McCowan Ranch to the West 401 shut down. And Kennedy and the collectors, the right lanes have been blocked off. And then approaching Ward into the 404, the collector lanes themselves have been shut down. Westbound 401 approaching the Allen in the Express, 2 left lanes are blocked off. At the 427, it's a slow go. 2 right lanes are closed here. We have some other roadwork happening. Southbound 400 through King Road. The left lane's blocked, and it was slow through here, but it doesn't seem too bad going through right now. We have eastbound 403 closed at Dundas for maintenance. Dundas ramp to east 403 shut down too. Every 3 minutes, a child is born with a cleft condition. This doesn't change even during a pandemic. Visit OperationSmile.ca and please help. Your next report is at 11:21, and with the forecast, here's Natasha Renza.
China Plus, right.
15 degrees.
Why is it
the
not
overnight low,
China
clear
plus
skies
sign?
continuing in another mainly sunny day tomorrow. A light lake breeze and a high of 28 degrees. Now the humidity stays low on Thursday, starts to go up on Friday. 30 degrees, feeling like 34.
What's the percentage?
So with
What's
the
the
additional
inches of
humidity and
mercury?
the heat from the sun, we are looking at some cumulus clouds building through the afternoon. Risk of thunderstorms just outside the downtown core. Overnight tonight, down to a low of 15 degrees.
Right now, downtown Toronto, 22 degrees with a clear sky. Over at Pearson Airport, similar conditions and 23 degrees. One of the stars of That 70s Show has been charged with rape. Danny Masterson has been facing accusations of rape for years. It seemed police couldn't make a case until now. He's been charged in Los Angeles with raping 3 women. The incidents allegedly occurring between 2001 and 2003, when Masterson would have been at the height of his fame as a star on the Fox sitcom That 70s Show. He more recently starred in the Netflix comedy The Ranch. His attorney says in a statement that the actor is innocent and the truth will come out. Masterson faces a sentence of 45 years to life if convicted. Jason Nathanson, ABC News, Hollywood.
We're living it up.
680 News Time, 11:14. Hi, Anthony Longo here. Becoming a father was the best thing that ever happened to me. And the best part about being a father, Longo's annual Father's Day lobster
trying to trick us.
fresh Brunswick lobsters.
Traveling and meeting each other. Now this is really a very creative approach, and the Shanghai Canton Fair is catching on its good brands because it's been there for so many years, and there has been trust and the reliance on the Canton Fair for the businesses to meet together, and every year there's big achievement, including many more transactions, either in terms of export and also in job.
So if you open a new tab with China Plus, the music stops. If you do it with the 680, it keeps going. Okay. Let's see. I don't have duct tape, I got zip ties and zigzag Okay, so I'm not red green. That's my uncle. I'm your cousin, red black. You got $20. No, that was correct because I fucked up. Oh, there's no word podcast in that URL. Beijing hour, I think. Oh, those are involuntary noises. I'm not going, oh, it's so bad, isn't it? I can't even describe. This this one virus I'm referring to has nothing to do with the last 10 years. You have to go back. So there's H1N1, there's H5N7 and H7N9 or some shit like that. There was two of them, but that second one was bad. It was Chinese Mexican, which confused me. First of all, they could say that and then say that immigration from Mexico to Canada is illegal. No, we didn't have all this. Yes, the internet existed. No, we didn't have all this instant access. Bro, what the fuck? Yeah, that wasn't loud enough for you guys to hear. Why don't you get a more expensive, better mic? Because there's a whole bunch of shit I'm gonna want you to hear. So, this fucking virus, the very first time it made me sick, I puked and oh, this is good, I'll drink some water. And I puked the water. I said, oh, that wasn't pleasant. So I drank some more water and I puked the water. I was like, this isn't a good fucking circle I'm on. Yeah, so every 6 months ago, every 6 months or so that would happen. For about a day, I'd be trying to figure out how to dehydrate. And that also tied in with the sickle cell, because I keep ending up at the other place. I'm surprised I didn't die, because it was a gigantic bathtub. Alright, Beijing hour. Africa to be among first to benefit from China's COVID-19 vaccine. 2, Beijing likely to report more new COVID-19 cases. Official. Yeah, well, you get, that could be great. When you're for China, what do you do? I work for the government, really? What do you do? I'm an official. Official what? Why are you asking so many questions? 3, China, India agreed to maintain border peace for UN says discrimination deeply entrenched in U.S. police, yet U.S. companies allowed to work with Huawei on 5G. Yeah, remember, from China's point of view, the U.S. is the foreign company interfering in their affairs. Don't forget that. China's working with Iran, and here's one of their people in Canada getting arrested because of the U.S. Yeah, you just think about that. From try to equate that to a drug dealer situation out on the street. That's a little fucked up. What's the one thing got to do with the other? That's kind of like, oh well, we thought this was. How is it illegal in Canada if Canada doesn't have the injunction or whatever? How the fuck is it illegal for them to work with Iran from Canada? It's not. Oh, she lied. What did she lie about? About breaking the law? Oh, Jesus. So this virus is horrible. So I guess my body's response. Oh, hold on, there's more. U.S. companies allowed to work. Oh, to work with Huawei on 5G. Click standards. You really needed that. Oh, you could have just put that word standards there and left the arrow out. I'm from the West, and so this virus is horrible. It'll make you reject water. Oh yeah, the part I was trying to get at, like if it's the fucking lining of your stomach comes out. So if you puke water once, don't try a second and third time to keep drinking it, because all that'll happen is you'll have raw tissue in your soul. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. It's bad. But the cool part is you keep
examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host, Shane Bigham, with you on this Thursday, June 18th, 2020. You're listening to the Beijing Hour, live from the Chinese capital. On today's program, China's promising to do whatever it can to support the COVID-19 response in Africa.
当前疫情仍在全球蔓延。
COVID-19 is still affecting many parts of the world. Both China and Africa face the formidable task of combating the virus while stabilizing the economy and protecting people's livelihoods.
UN officials calling for a special commission to investigate systemic racism in the U.S. and global law enforcement.
We believe the situation in the United States warrants urgent country-specific intervention and that a thematic global investigation is also in order.
China's continuing efforts to combat desertification while consolidating the progress being made over the past 2 decades. In business, a rebound for Chinese retailers. In sports, Premier League action
of COVID-19.
Xi Jinping pledged that once the
Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you.
The two sides held a video summit on
You know what? We'll just go back to
examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host,
Shane Bigham, with you on this Thursday, June 18th, 2020. You're listening to the Beijing Hour, live from the Chinese capital. On today's program, China's promising to do whatever it can to support the COVID-19 response in Africa.
当前疫情仍在全球蔓延。
COVID-19 is still affecting many parts of the world. Both China and Africa face the formidable task of combating the virus while stabilizing the economy and protecting people's livelihoods.
The UN officials calling for a special commission to investigate systemic racism in the U.S. and global law enforcement.
We believe the situation in the United States warrants urgent country-specific intervention and that a thematic global investigation is also in order.
China's continuing efforts to combat desertification while consolidating the progress being made over the past 2 decades. In business, a rebound for Chinese retailers. In sports, Premier League action has returned. In entertainment, new music from John Legend. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Beijing Hour, 60 minutes of comprehensive news, your window on China and the world.
Welcome back. Now the day's top stories. President Xi Jinping's promising that China will continue to do whatever it can to support the COVID-19 response in Africa. The two sides held a video summit on solidarity against the novel coronavirus on Wednesday. Xi Jinping is calling on both sides to work together to build a China-Africa community of health for all.
当前疫情仍在全球蔓延。
COVID-19 is still affecting many parts of the world. Both China and Africa face the formidable task of combating the virus while stabilizing the economy and protecting people's livelihoods. We must mobilize necessary resources, stick together in collaboration, and do whatever it takes to protect people's lives and health and minimize the fallout of COVID-19.
Xi Jinping pledged that once the deployment of a COVID-19 vaccine is completed in China, African countries will be among the first to benefit. He also announced that China will cancel the debt of some African countries' interest-free government loans that are due to mature by the end of this year. China is also to start ahead of schedule the construction of the Africa CDC headquarters this year and speed up the construction of China-Africa friendship hospitals. Currently, Africa has over 250,000 confirmed COVID-19 cases and more than 6,700 deaths. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa highlighted the role of multilateralism in the global anti-pandemic war.
This pandemic demands solidarity, demands global cooperation and collaboration. We need to strengthen the multilateral system and support the international institutions that must guide our response to this crisis.
President Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya called for efforts to strengthen disease control capacity in Africa.
And today I also urge leaders participating in this summit to join hands to strengthen disease control capacity in Africa, to deepen China-Africa cooperation in the manufacturing of pharmaceuticals and health equipment, and to champion open trade corridors for health commodities in order to reduce disruption of the global production and supply chains.
The summit was jointly initiated by China, South Africa, the rotating chair of the African Union, and Senegal, the co-chair of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. The attending leaders issued a joint statement affirming that both sides will further consolidate cooperation and support the United Nations and the World Health Organization in leading the battle against the pandemic. They also agreed to oppose politicizing the COVID-19 pandemic and stand firm for equity and justice in the world. A Chinese expert says the China-Africa summit held on Wednesday has shown strong determination from both sides and will encourage future cooperation in fighting against COVID-19 at all levels, such as in the development of a vaccine. With more, Huang Yue spoke to He Wenping, research fellow at the West Asia and Africa Studies Institute of the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences.
Why does China hold the summit at this time?
I think the timing is very important because now Africa is fighting this COVID-19 in a very hard way, and also China, we have been accumulated a number of those experience for fighting COVID-19. So this kind of timing is we are matched with each other. China can offer this, anti-virus materials and especially those experiences, and Africa is badly need all those wanted those materials and including face masks, like protective those shoes, and also some experiences. And plus, like you can see in the current situation globally, we badly need a kind of a spirit for calling and also for doing this international cooperation for fighting COVID-19. Cannot be saying scapegoat this blame to other country, or just saying blame like even WHO blame other country for their own failure. Yeah, some country like United States is doing that. United States administration, they are not that active, even preventing some international cooperation effort. So I think in order to promote international cooperation for fighting COVID-19, I think China, Africa, now we are doing the right thing in the right direction.
What do you expect this summit to influence the future cooperation between China and Africa?
Well, I think this summit itself has once again, show this strong determination coming from those leaders, because this is a summit. So from Chinese leader, President Xi Jinping, and the African leaders, those presidents, the head of state, and even plus two very important, the participants. One is the UN Secretary General, Mr. Guterres. Another is the Director General of the WHO. So this shows either the UN and also the WHO, they all give a very strong support for this closer China-African cooperation for fighting this COVID-19. So with those very strong backup coming from those leaders, and then I think that will encourage all kinds of different levels of people, like medical doctors, like even volunteer, like companies, even our scientists doing those research. To test, to do those, research on how to find the vaccine. The vaccine now is coming out very soon. So all those kinds of cooperation. So they are getting the most strongest those motivation now. This is the momentum has been made.
That was He Wenping, research fellow at the West Asia and Africa Studies Institute of the China Academy of Social Sciences. In the meantime, Professor Joseph Mahoney from East China Normal University expects the international cooperation against the pandemic to help improve public health systems in Africa.
In today's world, it's been proven again and again, new diseases can emerge quickly and quickly become pandemics. This is true even if diseases emerge in places with relatively robust public health systems, as happened with COVID-19 in China and H1N1 in the United States. However, many African countries are particularly vulnerable, lacking both regional and national organizations and infrastructure capable of providing effective control and containment of outbreaks, as well as adequate access to even basic health care. They need assistance now in this time of crisis, and indeed, broad international cooperation is required to contain the pandemic worldwide. International cooperation in China begins with organizations like the African Union and includes substantial cooperation via regional organizations that support trade and security, as well as health. As this pandemic has demonstrated, this is also true in Asia, as we've seen with vignt. Therefore, China's support for projects like Africa CDC under the African Union and its efforts to help build healthcare infrastructure while also alleviating debt burdens will help strengthen local capacities that will continue to serve needs long beyond COVID-19.
That was Professor Joseph Mahoney from East China Normal University talking about China-Africa cooperation against the COVID-19 pandemic. People in Africa say the China-Africa Summit on Solidarity Against COVID-19 reveals the dynamism of cooperation between the two sides. And Gao Junyup has more from Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwean Foreign Affairs and International Trade Minister Sibusiso Moyo says the summit was held at a critical time as the whole world is fighting against the COVID-19 pandemic. He says many African countries, including Zimbabwe, face daunting challenges to fend off the disease.
Zimbabwe, like any other developing nations, a nation has had its primary health care facilities not up to speed in order to host challenges which are originating from the COVID-19. Zimbabwe also faces challenges of the test kits, all the facilities and the technology which is required for handling of COVID-19.
He says China has been standing with African countries to combat the virus, helping them to go through the difficult time.
This has been a very excellent summit, which demonstrated the coexistence of solidarity between China and Africa, particularly against the fight of COVID-19. It has also resolved quite a lot of solidarity and unity of purpose and the determination to continue support to Africa by China.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has pledged to consolidate cooperation in the healthcare sector with Africa. He's also announced plans to cancel certain debt to some African countries. Journalist Fatma Badawi from Egypt says the moves will enable African countries to better combat COVID-19.
President Xi Jinping announced to cancel or suspend the debt of some African countries. He also pledged to speed up the construction of the Africa CDC headquarters, boosting Africa's capability for disease control and prevention. I believe without such decisive measures from China, African countries could hardly service the pandemic.
After the 3-hour summit, a number of African leaders who took part in the meeting have gone to social media platforms expressing their commitment to China-Africa cooperation. Senegal President Macky Sall says the joint declaration announced at the summit will further enrich the Beijing Declaration and focus 2019 to 2021 action plan, deepening cooperation in healthcare and medical care between China and Africa. Ethiopian President Abiy Ahmed Ali says it's important to strengthen existing cooperation between China and Africa to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic. For the Beijing Hour, I'm Gao Junyup reporting from Harare, Zimbabwe.
After the COVID-19 outbreak, China sent a large amount of medical supplies and assistance to over 50 African countries in the African Union, and also dispatched 5 teams of medical experts to the continent. Over the past 70 years, over 200 million people in Africa have received healthcare services and treatments from Chinese medical teams. Currently, 46 resident Chinese medical teams are now in Africa helping locals to fight against the pandemic. An economic advisor is calling on all countries to band together against protectionism to help revive global trade amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Daniel Levin is a board member of the Liechtenstein Foundation for State Governance, and he says that the reversal of protectionism is crucial to global economic recovery.
The anger out of the financial crisis of 2008 that led to very protectionist policies in these countries that have hurt global trade, and if that cannot be reversed, then the recovery from this pandemic is going to be even more painful than it already will be.
Levin adds that much will depend on the United States to coordinate COVID-19 vaccine development as well as meaningful trade deals that can help to boost global trade. Global confirmed COVID-19 cases have topped 8 million, with over 440,000 people worldwide killed by the pandemic.
That's what I was thinking. We had 8 million.
An official says Beijing's likely to report more new COVID-19 cases for the next few days, as the novel coronavirus pandemic is still on the rise in the city. Beijing's confirmed over 130 locally transmitted cases since June 11th, most of which have been linked to the now closed Xinfadi wholesale market, where the virus was detected. Peng Xinhua is the director of the Beijing Center for Disease Prevention and Control, and she says the possibility of continued growth in new cases cannot be ruled out since the pandemic control work is facing difficulties.
由于初期病例均与该市场存在流行病学关联。
Considering the first cases are associated with the wholesale market, in addition to the epidemic onset curve, it can be inferred that the new outbreak, which was detected at an early stage, is still on the rise in Beijing. As the market is the largest agricultural trading center in Beijing, with extensive logistics and a large number of people visiting, there is a high risk of virus spread, which would be difficult to control.
Beijing's upgraded its emergency response to COVID-19 from the 3rd to the 2nd level. An official says Beijing is collecting, on average, 400,000 nucleic acid samples citywide for COVID-19 testing every day. Zhang Cheng is the deputy director of the city's anti-pandemic steering group, and he says testing capacity will be expanded over the next few days.
For this, we have actively deployed 98 professional sampling teams from disease control institutions, hospitals, and independent testing institutions, carried out medical training, optimized setups of sampling points, and strengthened service guarantee to ensure that the testing goes on smoothly, orderly, and efficiently.
Nucleic acid tests will fully cover key groups such as those who've had close contact with or been linked to the now closed Xinfadi wholesale market where the virus was detected, as well as key venues including all the farm produce markets in the city. A spokesperson of the Beijing Municipal Education Commission says the city will not reschedule entrance exams for higher learning institutions for the time being. Li Yi says arrangements for the exams will be announced to the public in a timely fashion.
After Beijing upgraded its emergency response level, we are stepping up work for the examination arrangements, including planning the layout of examination venues, making epidemic control standards and requirements on examination sites, designing ways of issuing candidate identification passes, and formulating health requirements for candidates and test supervisors.
He says middle schools are encouraged to design multiple ways of checking up on student studies. For more on COVID-19, subscribe to our podcast, Coronavirus, What's Really Going On, which brings you everything you need to know about the novel coronavirus. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up, a UN official calls for a commission to investigate racism within law enforcement.
The Beijing Hour. The Beijing Hour. The Beijing Hour brings you an hour of comprehensive news and information from both China and the rest of the world. A mix of news, sports, and entertainment. In-depth analysis of the day's big stories, as well as the most comprehensive business of the day. The Beijing Hour. Beijing Hour. Your very own window to China and the rest of the world.
18 minutes past the hour. The UN Special Rapporteur on Racism has urged the UN to create a commission of inquiry to investigate systemic racism in law enforcement in the United States and globally. Professor Tendai Achiumi says injustice and discrimination are deeply entrenched within U.S. law enforcement, saying the legal justice system has failed to address the issue. And she's expressed concern that the killings of African Americans by police are continuing even during the anti-police brutality protests.
We strongly urge you to create a thematic commission of inquiry or other mechanism empowered to investigate systemic racism in law enforcement globally, especially where it is related to legacies of colonialism and transatlantic slavery. We believe the situation in the United
George Floyd's death. The brother of George Floyd has appealed to the United Nations to investigate the killings of Black people by police officers in the United States. Floyd died last month in the custody of 4 Minneapolis police officers, triggering protests against racial injustice. Delanese Floyd told the UN how his brother begged for his life when a white police officer pressed his knee into George Floyd's neck.
The officer showed no mercy, no humanity, and tortured my brother to death in the middle of the street in Minneapolis with a crowd of witnesses watching and begging them to stop showing us Black people the same lesson yet again. Black lives do not matter.
Floyd's brother addressed the UN during a session dedicated to debating police brutality and racial injustice globally. He called on the UN to help get justice for his brother and other victims of police brutality in America.
I'm asking you to help him. I'm asking you to help me. I'm asking you to help us, Black people in America. I hope that you would consider establishing an independent commission of inquiry to investigate police killings of Black people in America and the violence used against peaceful protesters.
Members attending the meeting in Geneva held a minute's silence for the victims of police violence at the beginning of the session. The former Atlanta police officer who fatally shot an African-American man outside of a fast food restaurant has now been charged with felony murder. Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard announced on Wednesday that Rolfe faces 11 charges. Rolfe shot Richard Brooks last Friday as Brooks tried to flee during an encounter with the police. Videos show Brooks interacting with two officers for almost 30 minutes before a struggle ensues and he flees with one of the officers' tasers. Rolfe shot at Brooks 3 times from the back, and he was fired after the incident. His colleague Devin Brosnan was placed on administrative leave and now faces 3 charges, including aggravated assault. Arrest warrants have been issued for Rolfe and Brosnan. China and India have agreed to maintain peace on their shared border. The foreign ministers have held talks over the phone following a fierce physical conflict between border guards of the two countries in the Galwan Valley region on Monday. It took place less than 10 days after the two sides reached a consensus on easing the situation at a commander-level meeting. China's blamed Indian forces for violating the consensus, illegally crossing the border and attacking Chinese soldiers. Chinese Foreign Ministry is demanding that India carry out a thorough investigation of the incident, discipline its frontline troops, and immediately stop all provocative actions. The U.S. Commerce Department's announced it'll allow American companies to work with Chinese tech firm Huawei on setting standards for 5G telecom networks. American companies have been required to obtain a special license from the Commerce Department to have any business dealings with Huawei and its affiliates since the Chinese telecom was first placed on the U.S. end of last year. But the rule change allows those companies to disclose U.S. technologies to Huawei without a license if it's for the purpose of 5G standards development. Huawei has welcomed the decision, saying it'll continue to hold sincere discussions with its counterparts, including those in the United States. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up, combating desertification in China.
Want to know what's trending in China? The China Plus News Facebook page helps you to discover the real China. From the quirky Chinese inventions, videos, photos, live streaming, join in the conversation today by searching for China Plus News on Facebook and discover its news, its people, its traditions and culture. China Plus News Facebook page. Open your eyes to the real China.
It's 23 minutes past the hour now. China's continuing efforts to combat desertification while consolidating the progress that's been made over the past couple of decades. Guoyan has more.
Various regions across China have been mobilizing people to join efforts to prevent desertification. People in Ordos in Mongolia have been exploring effective ways to restore its degraded land. The newly found drip irrigation approach to Karagana, also known as the Siberian pea shrub, has brought drastic changes to its landscape. Xie Zhangxiang is a local herdsman.
This place used to be covered by sand in spring with no grass at all. Now it's different with all these sturdy plants. Spring is very beautiful now.
The survival rate of the shrub used to be very low. Local forestry officials say they had to work hard to find a way to solve the problem. Qing Lingfeng is the chief of the local forestry and grassland bureau.
If we water these plants manually, it would be a huge waste of water. We'll be finding ways to ensure both plant survival and water conservation. The drip irrigation approach makes sure the water passes only through the drippers to water the plants.
The Ordos Desert, which used to be completely devoid of trees and farmland, has seen more than 90% of its area transformed. The desert is now emerging as a new spot teeming with grassland and oases. Official monitoring data since 2004 shows the area affected by desertification in China has been reduced by over 2,400 square kilometers on average annually. That compares to an annual expansion of 10,000 square kilometers at the end of last century. Sandified land has been shrinking by nearly 2,000 square kilometers on a yearly basis following an expansion of over 3,400 square kilometers 20 years ago. Sun Guoji is with the National Forestry and Grassland Administration.
We will continue combating desertification in the wind and sand source areas and comprehensively curb rocky desertification. We will also step up research in these fields.
China's been playing an increasingly important role in restoring degraded land globally. Its signature straw checkerboard barrier technique became known worldwide as a paradigm of successful sand control in the 1970s. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says China has made a great contribution to the UN goal of zero net land degradation by 2030. Wednesday marked the 26th World Day to combat desertification and drought. China's theme for this year is "Let's join hands to prevent and stop desertification while protecting the lucid water and lush mountains." For the Beijing Hour, this is Gui Yan.
China's launched a digital platform for the International Fair for Trade and Services, which is planned for September. Sui has more.
China's e-commerce giant Jeudi.com has provided technical support for digital operations, including the official website, an app and registration system, and a customer service system for the fair. Using 5G and virtual reality technologies, participants can use live streaming and video conferences to promote their products and conduct business transactions, supported by real-time translation. Deputy Director Sun Yao of the Beijing Municipal Commerce Bureau says these online platforms will help break down regional and language barriers.
The purpose is to build an influential platform for international exchanges and cooperation in service trade to help alleviate the impact of COVID-19.
Columbia China League CEO Joe Gallo says there are many benefits to the online platform.
First is the ability to reach a much wider audience. Second, it can be a more cost-effective option for the participants so that more people can attend. Third, online allows for the creation of specialized chat rooms that enable follow-up discussion.
It adds that sectors that are ideally suited for a digital platform, such as education and telehealth, may benefit more from the new platform.
COVID-19 has disrupted traditional education models. In China, numerous educational instruction portals geared for primary and secondary education have been launched in recent years. That trend will continue. And you have emerging service sectors, including telemedicine and telehealth, as diagnostics and medical procedures are increasingly performed remotely.
China will hold the International Fair for Trade and Services in Beijing later this year. It's expected to see over 100 forums in different sectors. Due to the global pandemic situation, the fair has prepared both online and offline events. For the Beijing Hour, this is Sui.
It's now 28 past the hour. Checking the forecast before the break, in Beijing will be overcast, 33 degrees Celsius, cloudy this evening, and 22. Chongqing will be cloudy and 30, then dipping to 24 tonight. Lhasa is getting a slight rainfall and 26, a low of 13. Hong Kong's cloudy and 30, a low of 27. In North America, Washington, D.C. is getting a slight rainfall and 27 degrees Celsius. New York City is getting some rain and 26. In Africa, Nairobi will get a slight rain and 22. Really? And finally, to Oceania, Port Vila is getting a slight rainfall and 27 degrees Celsius. It's time for a short break. So far this hour, China's promising to do whatever it can to support the COVID-19 response in Africa. UN officials calling for a special commission to investigate systemic racism in U.S. and global law enforcement. And China's continuing efforts to combat desertification while consolidating the progress that's been made over the past couple of decades. Shane Bigham with you. Stay with us here on the Beijing.
Chinese government.
Join the most popular Chinese language learning page on Facebook by searching for CRI Learn Chinese. It's a quick yet fun way to achieve your language goals. Start your free lessons now with unlimited videos, photos, and text tutorials on expressions in Chinese culture. CRI Learn Chinese Facebook page. The world opens with 您好.
Meow.
The Beijing Hour. The Beijing Hour. The Beijing Hour brings you an hour of comprehensive news and information from both China and the rest of the world. A mix of news, sports, and entertainment. In-depth analysis of the day's big stories, as well as the most comprehensive business of the day. The Beijing Hour. Beijing Hour. Your very own window to China and the rest of the world.
Want to know what's trending in China? China Plus News Facebook page helps you to discover the real China. From the latest news to quirky Chinese inventions, videos, photos, live streaming, and more. Join in the conversation today by searching for China Plus News on Facebook and discover its news, its people, its traditions and culture. China Plus News Facebook page. Open your eyes to the real China.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host,
Shane Bigham with you on this Thursday morning. Still to come, in business, a rebound for Chinese retailers. In sports, Premier League actions return. In entertainment, new music from John Legend. There are a number of ways to contact us. You can talk to us on Twitter at China Plus News or log on to Facebook at China Plus News for more news, videos, and analysis. Now, checking the day's headlines, President Xi Jinping's promising that China will continue to do whatever it can to support the COVID-19 response in Africa. The two sides held a video summit on solidarity against the novel coronavirus on Wednesday. Xi Jinping is calling on both sides to work together to build a China-Africa community of health for all.
COVID-19 is still affecting many parts of the world. Both China and Africa face the formidable task of combating the virus while stabilizing the economy and protecting people's livelihoods. We must mobilize necessary resources, stick together in collaboration, and do whatever it takes to protect people's lives and health and minimize the fallout of COVID-19.
Xi Jinping pledged that once the deployment of a COVID-19 vaccine is completed in China, African countries will be among the first to benefit. He also announced that China will cancel the debt of some African countries' interest-free government loans that are due to mature by the end of this year. An official says Beijing's likely to report more new COVID-19 cases for the next few days as the novel coronavirus pandemic is still on the rise in the city. The Chinese capital has confirmed over 130 locally transmitted cases since June 11th, most of which are linked to the now closed Xinfadi wholesale market where the virus was detected. Peng Xinhua with the Beijing Center for Disease Prevention and Control says the possibility of continued growth in new cases cannot be ruled out since the pandemic control work is facing difficulties.
由于初期病例均与该市场存在流行病学关联。
Considering the first cases are associated with the wholesale market, in addition to the epidemic onset curve, it can be inferred that the new outbreak, which was detected at an early stage, is still on the rise in Beijing. As the market is the largest agricultural trading center in Beijing, with extensive logistics and a large number of people visiting, there is a high risk of virus spread, which would be difficult to control.
Beijing's upgraded its emergency response to COVID-19 from the 3rd to the 2nd level. China and India have agreed to maintain peace on their shared border. The foreign ministers have held talks over the phone following a fierce physical conflict between border guards of the two countries in the Galwan Valley region on Monday. It took place less than 10 days after the two sides reached a consensus on easing the local situation at a commander-level meeting. China's blamed Indian forces for violating the consensus, illegally crossing the border and attacking Chinese soldiers. Chinese foreign minister is demanding that India carry out a thorough investigation into the incident, discipline its frontline troops, and immediately stop all provocative actions.
Is that not some gangster type of
The UN Special Rapporteur on Racism urged the UN to create a commission of inquiry to investigate systemic racism in law enforcement in the US and globally. Professor Tendai Echiumi says injustice and discrimination are deeply entrenched within U.S. law enforcement, saying the legal justice systems failed to address the issue. She has expressed concern that the killings of African Americans by police are continuing even during the anti-police brutality protests.
We strongly urge you to create a thematic commission of inquiry or other mechanism empowered to investigate systemic racism in law enforcement globally, especially where it is related to legacies of colonialism and transatlantic slavery. We believe the situation in the United States warrants urgent country-specific intervention and that a thematic global investigation is also in order.
The UN Human Rights Council held a debate on racial injustice and police violence yesterday. The debate came after several weeks of protests and demonstrations in the United States and around the world following George Floyd's death. The Honduran president announced that he and his wife have tested positive for COVID-19. Juan Orlando Hernandez is the first Latin American president confirmed to have tested positive for the novel coronavirus. And he says his symptoms are mild, he's already starting to feel better, and that he'll return to normal activity in a short time. He adds that he'll fulfill his responsibilities as president through electronic means. Honduras has so far confirmed over 9,600 COVID-19 cases, including 330 deaths.
Like
the U.S. Commerce Department announced it will allow American companies to work with Chinese tech firm Huawei on setting standards for 5G telecom networks. American companies have been required to obtain a special license from the Commerce Department to have any business dealings with Huawei and its affiliates since the Chinese telecom firm was placed on the U.S. entity list in May of last year. But the rule change allows those companies to disclose U.S. technologies to Huawei without a license if it's for the purpose of 5G standards development. Huawei's welcomed the decision, saying it'll continue to hold sincere discussions with its counterparts, including those in the United States.
Wants to do the hourly news.
I would like some utensils, please. 请给我拿副餐具.
Somebody has to make those.
I'd like a fork and a knife. 我要副刀叉. All in today's Chinese studio.
Hey, what's going on here?
I don't know. I don't think they'd like you.
Exactly. They haven't given me any utensils or place settings.
Hold it in, Raymond. Use the force and don't let it get to you.
That's right. I'm going to open a can of whoop-ass now. Teach me how to say, I would like some utensils, please.
Okay, this is how you can say it in Chinese. 请给我拿副餐具.
请给我拿副餐具.
请 the third tone, which means please.
请
给我 the second tone and the third tone, which means to me.
给我
拿 the second tone, which means to bring or to take.
拿
副 is the measure word for utensils, and it's in the fourth tone.
副
餐具 the first tone and the fourth tone, which means utensil.
餐具. So how do you say, please give me?
请给我
to bring or take.
拿
And then the measure word for a utensil?
副
And then how about the utensils?
餐具. So I would like some utensils, please. In Chinese, you can say 请给我拿副餐具. 请给我拿副餐具.
请给我拿副餐具.
Hey, Raymond, I can obviously tell that the new utensils didn't help you out.
Yeah, how do you use these two stick things?
Well, we better get you something else.
Yeah, I'm a little slow. I think it's best to give me a fork and a knife.
Okay, here's how you can say it.
Diablo, what the fuck?
我要一副刀叉.
Diabloso.
我要一副刀叉.
我 means I.
我
要 the fourth tone, which means need or would like to have.
要
副, the fourth tone, is the measure word for utensils, and here it's used for
some boy, you gotta teach
fork
us tones,
and
eh?
knife.
副
刀, the first tone, which means knife.
刀
叉, the first tone, which means fork.
叉. So how do you say, I would like?
Yeah, that's these fucking white people in Anglophone.
And then the measure word for utensils again?
And inferences.
How about a
you
knife?
Understand this way more than just yes and no.
And then a fork.
叉.
You're working with six
So
tones.
in Chinese,
Same word,
usually
six
we
tones.
say 刀叉 which means knife and fork.
So how do you say I would like a
Even
knife
French
and
only has
fork?
3 accents.
我要一副刀叉。我要副刀叉。
我要副刀叉。
Wow, don't cut yourself.
Yeah, I forgot how to do all of that.
Well, I guess you need to get back to using your hands.
Well, before I start digging in, how do I say I would like some utensils, please?
Send your answer to Chinese at crifm.com.
Don't forget to check out crienglish.com and click on Learn Chinese.
明天见。
明
That's
天
the
见。
old URL. They got thousands of these recordings.
Join the most popular Chinese language learning page on Facebook by searching for CRI Learn Chinese. It's a quick yet fun way to achieve your language goals. Start your free lessons now with unlimited videos, photos, and text tutorials on expression and Chinese culture. CRI Learn Chinese Facebook page. The world open
I think it's 6 a.m. in South Africa right now. I don't know about
You're listening to China Plus Radio, connecting you with China and the world. Now the news. I'm Shane Bigham. President Xi Jinping's promising that China will continue to do whatever it can to support the COVID-19 response in Africa. The two sides held a video summit on solidarity against the novel coronavirus on Wednesday. Xi Jinping's calling on both sides to work together to build a China-Africa community of health for all.
当前疫情仍在全球蔓延。
COVID-19 is still affecting many parts of the world. Both China and Africa face the formidable task of combating the virus while stabilizing the economy and protecting people's livelihoods. We must mobilize necessary resources, stick together in collaboration, and do whatever it takes to protect people's lives and health and minimize the fallout of COVID-19.
Xi Jinping pledged that once the deployment of a COVID-19 vaccine is completed in China, African countries will be among the first to benefit. He also announced that China will cancel the debt of some African countries' interest-free government loans that are due to mature by the end of this year. Beijing reported 21 new COVID-19 infections on Wednesday, bringing the total of the new outbreak to over 150. Around 2/3 of them were detected in Fengchai district, which has been hardest hit amid the resurgence of the novel coronavirus. China is expressing opposition to a Xinjiang-related bill signed by U.S. President Donald Trump. The Foreign Ministry says the bill smears the human rights situation in Xinjiang and slanders China's efforts in counterterrorism and de-radicalization. It stresses that Xinjiang-related issues are not about human rights, ethnicity, or religion, but about fighting violence, terrorism, and separatism. China and India have agreed to maintain peace on their shared border. The foreign ministers have held talks over the phone following a fierce physical conflict between border guards of the two countries in the Galban Valley region on Monday. It took place less than 10 days after the two sides reached a consensus on easing the local situation at a commander-level meeting. China's blamed Indian forces for violating the consensus, illegally crossing the border and attacking Chinese soldiers. The Chinese foreign minister is demanding that India carry out a thorough investigation into the incident, discipline its frontline troops, and immediately stop all provocative actions. U.S. President Donald Trump's extended existing U.S. sanctions on North Korea for another year. Washington declared a national emergency with respect to North Korea in 2008, with an executive order signed by then-President George W. Bush. The order, which was further expanded under Trump in previous administrations, calls for sanctions on North Korea for its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. The UN Special Rapporteur on Racism urged the UN to create a commission of inquiry to investigate systemic racism in law enforcement in the United States and globally. Professor Tendai Echiumi says injustice and discrimination are deeply entrenched within U.S. law enforcement, saying the legal justice system has failed to address the issue. She's expressed concern that the killings of African Americans by police are continuing even during the anti-police brutality protests.
We strongly urge you to create a united commission of inquiry or other mechanism empowered to investigate systemic racism in law enforcement globally, especially where it is related to legacies of colonialism and transatlantic slavery. slavery. We believe the situation in the United States warrants urgent country-specific intervention and that a thematic global investigation is also in order.
The UN Human Rights Council held a debate on racial injustice and police violence yesterday. The debate came after several weeks of protests and demonstrations in the United States and worldwide following George Floyd's death. The U.S. Commerce Department's announced it'll allow American companies to work with Chinese tech firm Huawei on setting standards for 5G telecom networks. American companies have been required to obtain a special license from the Commerce Department to have any business dealings with Huawei and its affiliates since Huawei was first placed on the U.S. entity list back in May of last year. But the rule change allows those companies to disclose U.S. technologies to Huawei without a license if it's for the purpose of 5G standards development. Huawei has welcomed the decision, saying it'll continue to hold sincere discussions with its counterparts, including those in the United States. The Honduran president announced that he and his wife have tested positive for COVID-19. Juan Orlando Hernandez is the first Latin American president confirmed to have tested positive for the novel coronavirus. But he says his symptoms are mild and he's already starting to feel better and that he'll return to normal activity in a short time. And that's the news. I'm Shane Bigham.
Some say Chinese is one of the most difficult languages in the world, and learning it is almost impossible.
So learning Chinese, the most difficult thing.
So I'm sort of tone deaf. I can't really hear them.
I think the cultural mindset is the biggest complication for the
Grammar. To choose.
Okay, cool. Are you fucking serious? You people are out there right now acting like that. App may not work with split screen. No such app found. No, stop trying to open shit. I didn't ask you to open you. Yeah, I'm purposely opening apps that don't have them. Radios? What's it? Like, is that something like records and tapes and radios? No, we're gonna just fucking miss most of what we're trying to hear because you're gonna run a fucking 2-minute ad when you already run an ad. That's ugly. Yeah, the Edge. The car is ugly because it doesn't say what company made the car. What is this? Yeah, Ford. I got it bought. Okay, what the fuck are you not playing the fucking radio for? You're defeating the purpose of why I played this. Oh, there's not much stuff. What are you gonna miss out there?
Concluded that at the time that Rayshard Brooks was shot, he did not pose an immediate threat of death. Former Atlanta police officer Garrett Rolfe has now been charged with felony murder in connection with the fatal shooting.
And the possible sentences for a felony murder conviction would be life without parole, or the death penalty.
Rolfe is facing close to a dozen charges in total. Devin Brosnan, the other police officer on scene, faces 3 charges, including aggravated assault. The district attorney says what's remarkable is that Brosnan has now become a witness in the case.
Within a matter of days, he plans to make a statement regarding the culpability of Officer Ross.
The 27-year-old Brooks was shot in Atlanta during an attempted arrest 5 days ago.
No, he was arrested. He was doing everything.
680 news time 12:08. Toronto police are asking for your help locating a missing man in Etobicoke. 48-year-old Randy Hawkins was last seen in the West Mall and Bloor Street area Saturday, June 13th at 9 o'clock in the morning. He's described as 5'8", 160 pounds with a medium build, receding short curly brown hair. Last seen wearing blue jeans, black t-shirt with writing on the front, blue high-top running shoes as well. You can see his picture on the TPS Operations Twitter page. Anyone with information on his whereabouts is asked to contact police. 680 news time at 12:09.
We know where it is. 5 fucking days
following the
ago.
discovery of an artillery shell. City's Mark Douglas reports.
Residents here on Whitman Street have a very simple question they want answered.
Why was a military ordnance buried in a backyard in North York?
Are
The
you
police showed up,
retarded?
said they brought in the bomb squad, they brought in the fire department. They said,
they're complaining.
well, look, we found an artillery shell.
They're
I think it's time for
complaining.
you guys to evacuate the area. We have to dispose of it safely. Landscaper James McWhorter was working here at the construction site at 11 Whitman Street. He and his team dug up the shell with a skid steer and quickly realized what it was. Were you scared? Were you
It was obviously a bit of a shock, but you know, it looked like it was encased and well intact. We obviously knew. We're lucky that nobody hit it a different way.
He says the shell was about 2 feet long, maybe 100 pounds, certainly too heavy for just one construction guy and his crew to move. Toronto Police and Toronto Fire were here. The bomb squad stayed with the shell, keeping it safe. Canadian military personnel arrived and took the shell away without any incident. In North York, I'm Mark Douglas.
Coronavirus updates.
But I said they call the bomb squad, but they can't do shit with their artillery shell because it's going to fly off somewhere when you detonate it. With the Canadian Forces says UXO unexploded ordnance
A cent at midnight, now sitting at $1.09 cents a liter at most GTA stations. 680 News Time, 12:10.
Ontario, you're making a difference to keep
when they
people
find rocket
safe
launchers in the ghetto, they give them to the Canadian Forces, and they say, we don't know where it came from. Or
Get tested if you're worried you may have COVID-19 or have been exposed to the virus. Practice physical distancing. Stay 2 meters apart. Wear a face covering when physical distancing is a challenge, and continue to wash hands frequently, inside or out. Stay
Use
safe.
your own hands.
Save lives. Learn more at ontario.ca/coronavirus. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
This report is brought to you by Winston Churchill, Mississauga Road, and the Mavis ramps onto the eastbound 401.
They are
right to here, Ontario's
well, that's what it was.
Well.
Were you scared? Were you
It was obviously a bit of a shock, but you know, it looked like it was encased and well intact. We obviously knew we were lucky.
418, 2 left lanes blocked off, so not a lot of room getting by here. We have the northbound Port Union, the Nielsen,
4 minutes,
the Markham,
great.
and the northbound McCowan ramps. So westbound 401 shut down, and no access to McCowan off the west 401. This ramp is closed. Approaching Warden to the 404, the collector lanes have been shut down. At the 427, only the left lane is open underneath the highway. Eastbound 403 is closed at Dundas tonight. You're going to exit at Dundas. No access to the East 403 from the Dundas ramps. You can use Dundas to Winston Churchill and then continue eastbound 403. Northbound 427 ramp to Highway 7. That's also closed. 407 ETR is helping communities and hospitals with a $5.2 million donation to United Way and GTHA hospitals. Learn more at 407etr.com. Your next report is at 12:21, and with the forecast, here's Adam Stiles.
We've got a high of 29 in the forecast today with a little bit of a lake breeze, which means it will be cooler near the shores of Lake Ontario, likely in the lower 20s. Heading up to an afternoon high temperature
no
tomorrow,
shade
29.
in the direct sun and the lights bouncing off water.
Going to be the mild side as well, starting off the day tomorrow at 17 degrees. More sunshine expected, but we need to watch out for a little
anywhere in public in the
thunderstorms.
city.
It's going to be affecting the north end of the GTA likely throughout the afternoon hours.
With all these ideas,
Today,
well, we should be going.
with a high of 29.
Talking about
Right now, downtown Toronto, 18 degrees with a clear sky. Over at Pearson Airport, similar conditions.
An actor from a well-known sitcom has been charged with rape.
Prosecutors in Los Angeles say that 70s show actor Danny Masterson has been charged with 3 counts of rape by force or fear. The charges come after a 3-year investigation of the actor, who is 44 years old. 1 count involves an assault on a 23-year-old woman in 2001, one of a 28-year-old in 2003, and a 23-year-old woman later in 2003. The allegations first came out when prosecutors announced them in 2017. Masterson denied the allegations at that time. I'm Oscar Wells Gabriel.
Superfan with a super deal. Our biggest construction sale is on now. Don't pay for 6 months on all new cars. Your safety is our #1 priority. We have masks and gloves ready for you. We sanitize every hour. We
every hour? On the hour?
For 6 months on all new cars. qui presse ce gouvernement, ces politiciens, à faire une pression au gouvernement brésilien. Le Brésil dépend des marchés internationaux pour ses exportations. Donc, on peut faire des pressions. La pression faite des pays étrangers a une énorme répercussion à l'intérieur du Brésil. On ne peut pas lâcher. Il faut absolument qu'on fasse tous ensemble cette pression contre ce gouvernement désastreux du Brésil.
On a souvent l'impression que ce qui n'est pas dans notre cour arrière immédiate nous concerne moins. Pourtant, quand on parle de l'Amazonie, j'imagine que c'est un peu aussi le sens du cri que vous lancez. C'est un héritage collectif. Ça n'appartient pas qu'aux Brésiliens, ça nous appartient tous collectivement. Et cette idée, peut-être un peu éculée, du poumon de la Terre, ben on a un poumon qui est de plus en plus menacé. C'est ce que vous voulez aussi nous rappeler.
Oui, je vais rappeler, mais je vais rappeler aussi que le monde est divisé par des frontières, par des États. Et le Brésil a la souveraineté sur son territoire amazonien. Ce n'est pas un territoire international, donc il faut faire très attention. Mais par contre, la protection de l'Amazonie, ça nous concerne tous. Il faut que nous tous, on travaille ensemble pour la protéger, la conserver, parce qu'on dépend la planète entière de l'Amazonie. Vous savez, beaucoup de l'humidité, beaucoup de pluie qu'on a au Canada, elle monte de la forêt amazonienne. La distribution d'humidité dans toute la planète, la séquestration, la capture de carbone que ces arbres de l'Amazonie font. Vous savez, les plus grandes concentrations de biodiversité de la planète, c'est là que ça nous offre un certain équilibre de la planète. Au moment qu'on va détruire ça, ça va être possiblement
vous avez mis en place cette pétition. Jusqu'à maintenant, elle a emporté un vif succès. Plus de 300 000 personnes l'ont signé. Ce que je crée avec les pétitions, c'est que ça nous fait toujours bonne conscience, sans véritable effort. C'est comme mettre un petit émoticône d'empathie sur nos médias sociaux. Or, pour faire avancer les choses, il faut faire davantage de pression. Je ne dirais pas qu'il y a un risque à la pétition, parce que c'est une manière d'attirer l'attention. Mais est-ce qu'on peut être d'accord que c'est probablement pas assez non plus?
Non, c'est pas assez non plus, vous savez. Mais la pétition amène à l'information. Elle devient une personne conscientisée. Et donc, elle a signé, mais elle aura aussi un comportement à faveur de la protection de cette. L'effet de cette lettre, c'est qu'elle était signée par 67 grandes personnalités de la planète et qu'on a créé un énorme impact à l'intérieur du Brésil parce qu'avec ma femme, on a acheté d'espace dans la presse brésilienne, on a payé de notre poche et on a publié cette pétition que les Brésiliens entiers la vie. On a provoqué des énormes discussions à la télévision. On a fait vraiment une grande ventilation de cet appel qu'on a fait. Et ça, c'est arrivé aux autorités brésiliennes. Il y a eu son effet. Et donc, qu'il aille un effet international aussi à travers des signatures, des conscientisations de personnes, parce que vous savez, les problèmes, ce n'est pas seulement les Covid, les problèmes, c'est la destruction de l'Amazonie. Oui, on s'en rappelle bien l'année dernière, on a eu les incendies de l'Amazonie. Préparez-vous, dans 2 mois, ce serait plus grand encore que l'année dernière, parce que la forêt amazonienne, elle ne brûle pas, c'est une forêt humide. Pour la brûler, il faut la battre. Et là, on est en train d'abattre la forêt beaucoup plus intensement qu'on a abattu l'année dernière pour mettre cette année, ça va être pire.
Et parce que c'est le rappel que vous faites, si elle brûle ponctuellement cette forêt, c'est parce qu'on veut bien la brûler, on veut de la déforestation pour être capable de cultiver, pour être capable de faire autre chose avec ce réservoir naturel qui est la forêt amazonienne. Vous pensez que le gouvernement Bolsonaro est sensible à cette pression qui s'exerce sur lui, sur son image de marque et sur l'agitation aussi que ça crée auprès de la population brésilienne.
C'est démocratique. Et donc, je crois que l'ensemble de toutes les choses, de toutes les pressions, elle vient maintenant sur les côtés. Et donc, c'est ensemble qui va les déstabiliser, les faire abandonner le pouvoir et permettre qu'on puisse gérer un pays en respectant ses institutions. Parce que ce que le gouvernement Bolsonaro fait au Brésil, c'est qu'il tous les gouvernements d'extrême droite font quand ils prennent le pouvoir. Ils détruisent les
That's great. What is the purpose of this fucking thing? They're not hyperlinks. What the fuck does this do? This is as good as YouTube's anti-suicide links. Here, click here. No, seriously, click here.
Fragile, ce sont des échos. Malgré ce que vous constatez, gardez
technology actually created to figure out what the government can't figure out. Old technology. What is? Fuck off.
Dans ce débat, dans cette discussion, pour qu'on puisse faire. Mais en même temps, la destruction est en train de se passer. On est en train de détruire, on est en train de brûler, on est en train d'amener les Covid-19 aux populations indigènes.
These dépotoirs de pussy, boy. Get the fuck out of the machine, boy. Show up in your fucking house.
Je pense qu'on va pouvoir arrêter ça.
When you're working from home, that means there's an IP connection straight from your house to my house.
Vous agissez, parce que l'espoir est aussi propulsé par l'action, et vous avez décidé de ne pas croiser les bras. Je vous souhaite de bien continuer le travail. Les expositions dont vous nous parliez en début d'entretien seront visibles, si on nous le permet, à partir de quand?
Écoute,
how many times are you going to warn me about cookies? Because you know I'm using an incognito tab. Why are you telling me? Oh, you want me to click on it?
La même exposition à São Paulo, quelques jours après la même exposition à Rio de Janeiro. On l'ouvrira ensuite à Rome et ensuite à Londres. Donc, on a un cercle des musées qui vont le présenter et on voulait beaucoup amener cette exposition comme on l'a fait avec Jeudi au Canada.
Merci mille fois d'avoir accepté de nous parler aujourd'hui, Sébastien Salgado.
Un grand plaisir.
Pandémie ou pas, la déforestation ne connaît pas de répit en Amazonie brésilienne, selon des données rendues publiques la semaine dernière par l'Institut national de recherche spatiale du Brésil. 830 km² de surface boisée ont été perdus uniquement pour le mois de mai dernier. On joint à Paris un spécialiste et aussi surtout peut-être un passionné de l'Amazonie, le docteur Stéphane Rosten, qui est archéologue, directeur de recherche au CNRS. Bonjour à vous.
Bonjour.
Vous avez déjà écrit le mirage amazonien a fait un tort terrible. Le dynamisme propre à la forêt tropicale a été le germe de sa déchéance, ou du moins a donné l'illusion d'une vitalité inaliénable. Or, ce n'est pas le cas.
Hélas, oui, on a un peu lâché les Européens il y a 500 ans dans cette forêt, comme on aurait lâché des enfants dans un pot de confiture. Et depuis 500 ans, on se sert comme si cette manne était inépuisable. Et dans tous les domaines, on parle souvent des arbres, mais il y a d'autres actions aussi réversibles, comme par exemple la mine, avec des problèmes de mine ou à l'est, à l'ouest, un orpaillage illégal terrible qui lâche beaucoup de mercure dans les rivières. Ce mercure est mangé par les poissons de cet orpaillage.
Docteur Rosten, on parle beaucoup, évidemment, de ce que le gouvernement au Brésil présente. Est-ce que cette déforestation est légalement faite ou il y a aussi du banditisme qui est également toléré?
Can you say shielded conduit encased in concrete? Where is the fucking interference coming from?
J'avais dénoncé l'année dernière avec une augmentation terrible. On prévoit de plus de 30% d'augmentation de la déforestation en 2020 par rapport à 2019.
Non,
ça. 2019 avait déjà été une année record entre guillemets. Le gouvernement de Bolsonaro est en faveur de la sauvegarde de la forêt, il faut quand même le savoir. Ils ont deux arguments. C'est vanille, c'est un peu court comme argument. Et le deuxième, elle ne produit rien, pas d'argent, donc il faut la rendre productive.
Et la rendre productive, c'est donc de la faire disparaître pour faire de la culture.
Voilà, c'est un peu ça. Moi, j'ai tendance à dire qu'en favorisant la déforestation et le tue le présent, en laissant tous propager les mœurs amérindiens, dont il faut parler aussi, il hypothèque un peu le futur. Et aujourd'hui, il ignore le patrimoine et donc détruit le passé. C'est vraiment une triple action négative, on est en train d'éliminer une page entière d'histoire. On a beaucoup parlé du feu qui a détruit le musée de Rio de Janeiro. Actuellement, on tue des populations vivantes et on tue les sites archéologiques. Il a eu une phrase un peu excessive. Il a dit il y a une quinzaine de jours que les archéologues dont je suis arrêtent la construction de la construction en général à cause d'un simple petit caca pétrifié d'Indiens. C'est pour vous dire la considération qu'il a pour le passé précolonial, précolombien de son pays, son histoire.
Mais au-delà de la page d'histoire, collectivement, et c'est un peu pour ça qu'on voulait vous parler, parce que entre le mythe et la réalité, est-ce qu'on est véritablement en train de scier collectivement, peut-être par notre indifférence, la branche sur laquelle nous sommes assis? Parce que cet écosystème, il ne sert pas que les Brésiliens, il sert à une partie de l'humanité. Hein?
C'est le sens du problème, c'est-à-dire qu'on a très mal agi en tant qu'occidentaux durant des siècles, et ils se disent qu'on ne va pas recevoir des leçons de gens qui ont mal agi, surtout que ça nous appartient. C'est pas vrai, puisque l'Amazonie, ce parti est une des chevilles les plus importantes du climat mondial, par le rejet de l'humidité, notamment. Elle contrôle le climat sur la côte brésilienne, mais aussi sur l'ensemble du globe. Donc les conséquences seront mondiales. Et je pense qu'on est en train de frôler de point de rupture. Et puis un autre dont peu de gens parlent, mais je ne suis pas spécialiste, mais il me semble que quand même les maladies, les grandes pandémies que l'on connaît depuis quelques temps sont souvent sorties de pays tropicaux où la vie est plus effervescente. Il y a beaucoup de vie, beaucoup de biodiversité, et donc il y a des maladies qui sont sorties, on le sait, d'Afrique il y a déjà quelques temps, maintenant d'Asie. Je ne serais pas surpris que les prochaines grandes pandémies sortent de l'Amazonie.
De l'Amazonie, parce qu'on se rapproche d'écosystèmes qui avaient été laissés à eux-mêmes. Il nous reste peu de temps, mais puisqu'on a beaucoup montré du doigt le régime de M. Bolsonaro, est-ce que c'est injuste de les stigmatiser parce que d'une certaine manière, sinon d'une manière certaine, le problème est antérieur. Depuis longtemps, les gouvernements brésiliens ont un peu saboté ce patrimoine.
C'est certain, mais on ne peut pas comparer le coup d'accélérateur qu'a donné Bolsonaro avec ses prédécesseurs. Les prédécesseurs ont peut-être été un peu négligents, mais Bolsonaro est en guerre contre la biodiversité, contre l'Amazonie et je dirais contre son peuple. Vous voulez une réponse optimiste ou pessimiste?
Faites-moi en 30 secondes la réponse optimiste.
Optimiste, eh bien, je pense que ce qu'a fait Sebastião Salgado est une image assez positive de ce qui peut être fait. Il a replanté des millions d'hectares, des millions d'arbres dans sa région natale, et je pense qu'il y a beaucoup de volonté au Brésil de gens qui veulent, notamment les Amérindiens, les gardiens de la forêt, qui veulent sauver cette entité. Et si on peut faire confiance au peuple et aux autochtones, on peut vraiment après le passage de Bolsonaro.
Stéphane Rostin, merci d'avoir choisi pour nous ou d'avoir accepté de nous donner le scénario optimiste. Je préfère un verre qui est à demi plein qu'à demi vide. Et on se souhaite qu'on puisse pleinement respirer de l'air qui sera en partie. Merci d'avoir été attentif encore une fois aujourd'hui. On se retrouve demain, 9h06. Au revoir.
Ici Isabelle Richer. Je vous emmène avec moi au palais de justice pour revoir les affaires judiciaires qui nous ont marqués et qui ont changé les choses.
La version des faits, un balado à écouter sur l'application Radio-Canada Audio.
Ici Jacques Beauchamp, j'aborde l'histoire dans toutes ses dimensions. Ici Mathieu Dugal. Vous avez des questions? J'ai beaucoup de réponses.
Et moi, make the most of what comes next with a bank account that gives you more. With the Scotiabank Ultimate Package, you can get a boost to your savings, unlimited Interac e-transfer transactions, and a $300 welcome bonus. So make the most of what comes next.
All right, well, I was trying to make
Ultimate Package.
radio fucking things working or not.
Conditions apply. Visit scotiabank.com/ultimate300. Scotiabank.
That's more than 50 years old in Canada, that edition.
Right now in downtown Toronto, we've got a clear sky, 18 degrees, 20 at Pearson. Have a great morning. It's 12:30.
Fuck off. Jesus. Good morning. Where's your buddy? Where's your dog?
Good morning. This is Thursday, June 18th. I'm Veronica Sword. And good morning. I'm Carlin Donahue. Here's what's making news right now.
The Trudeau government survives a confidence vote in the House of Commons as the Prime Minister promises to open the federal books next month and show Canadians the fiscal and economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic.
We already know. We're not worried about it just because we already know this time.
After calling an MP racist for blocking a motion to tackle systemic racism in the RCMP.
Why should you have to apologize for racist? Racists are not racist, so what? Racist. Okay, well, you're a liberal. You're a conservative. Damn Yankee.
A former Atlanta police officer is facing over 10 charges in connection with the shooting death of Rayshard Brooks. A second officer at the scene is now a state witness.
You can kick him out if all you're making a scene. Fine.
Continue to work on the fields, trying to get a season started as the Premier League makes its return. Sports at 45. Google's rolling out a multi-million-dollar package to support black businesses. Markets are coming off a mixed session with more earnings and economic data.
Whoever told me to apologize for losing like one other nostril to be a different size than the other.
Time 12:31. It's time for traffic and weather together on the ones. Good morning, Craig Gear.
Good morning. This report brought to you by Lexus. So construction out there. We have some delays on the westbound 401 as you approach the 427. Only the left lane is open underneath the 427, so it's really heavy through here still. And on the eastbound 401, we have a stretch of the express lanes closed. So you're in the collectors basically from east of Kissling right through to the Allen, but it doesn't seem to be jamming anybody up. We have a bunch of stretches where you're down to a single lane, like approaching Curtis Road to the 418. Only the right lane is open. Northbound 427 ramp to Highway 7, that's closed, and the eastbound 403 has been shut down.
That's right. It doesn't matter if there's only one left.
Showroom or online with Don Valley North Lexus on demand. Lease a new 2020 NX 300 from $178 bi-weekly. Visit DonValleyNorthLexus.com. Next report at 12:41. Here's the forecast with Adam Stiles.
Head down to the shores of Lake Ontario. Mid to lower 20s for daytime highs. Everybody else warms up to about 29 degrees. Wall-to-wall sunshine, low humidity, and a light breeze. Winds out of the southeast up to about 30 kilometers per hour. Today's high, 29.
In downtown Toronto right now, we're sitting at 18 degrees with a clear sky, and it's 20 over at Toronto Pearson. 680 News Time, 12:33. The Trudeau government has avoided a potential federal election in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. It comes as the Prime Minister promises to deliver a fiscal snapshot of the federal books next month. 680's Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney joins us with more.
Canadian dollars at least.
And with those words from the Speaker of the House, the Trudeau government survived a confidence vote on $87 billion in program spending amid this pandemic. The NDP propping up the Liberals after the Prime Minister agreed to their demand to extend the emergency response benefit. If the Liberals lost the vote, the minority government would have been toppled and we could have faced a COVID-19 election, but that's been avoided. The vote came hours after the Prime Minister also promised what he calls a fiscal and economic snapshot of the impact of this pandemic. On July 8th, the Feds will lay out the federal books as they stand, how Canada compares to other countries, and what may happen in the months ahead. Justin Trudeau stresses this is not a fiscal update like the opposition had been calling for because it's impossible to give long-term forecasts. He also won't say when we can expect the budget.
Right now, we're still very much responding to an immediate situation, and we will continue to reflect on when that time could be right.
The Bloc Québécois critical of the timing of this snapshot, saying the Liberals are trying to dump the numbers in the summer when no one's paying attention. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
The left side,
Meantime, NDP leader Jeudi Singh is standing by what he said in the House of Commons Wednesday after he was kicked out for calling a Bloc Québécois MP a racist. Singh was trying to get unanimous consent for a motion that would recognize systemic racism in the RCMP and demand a review of the budget and use of force by officers. Singh choked up as he told reporters Bloc MP Elaine Therrien was the only person to deny consent for the motion.
I looked back and I saw that MP not only say no, but make eye contact with me and just kind of brush his hand, dismiss it. And in that moment, I got angry. I'll be honest. I'm sad now.
You don't know what we're talking about? You have the experience. Don't call me white.
Why can't we act?
The blog logged a formal complaint in the House, but Singh refused to apologize for his remarks, so the Speaker ordered him out of the chamber for the rest of the day. Despite a multi-million-dollar bid, Canada's attempt at nabbing a coveted seat on the United Nations Security Council has failed. 680's Asher Roth joins us with more.
Canada needed 128 votes to secure the coveted spot as it went up against Norway and Ireland, but only received 108. John Curtin, an international relations professor at U of C, says Canada's campaign, having progressive values such as gender equality and climate change, was almost identical to its two competitors.
A significant number of the countries who voted were not as committed to those values as Justin Trudeau.
Foreign Affairs Minister Francois Philippe Champagne says it's not all bad news.
Our
influence is greater. We have reconnected with countries around the world.
Canada last sat on the Security Council back in 2010 when Stephen Harper's Conservative government's bid to retain the seat was rejected. Getting that spot back was a campaign priority for the Trudeau Liberals, who spent more than $2 million on the bid. I'm Asher Roth.
$2 million up here, that's $2.
680 News Times 1236. Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown joined hundreds of protesters who rallied outside the Peel District School Board headquarters. The rally, which was called a March for Justice, was organized by students, including this one.
What was going on in the world and how things were increasing and how, the tensions were rising. We came together and thought that this would be the perfect time to get this March for Justice. The Peel Board has neglected us time and time again, and we came together and said, we should take advantage of this and get our, voice our concern.
The protest comes on the heels of a report that came out in March alleging black students are disproportionately suspended when compared to their peers, and in some cases have the police called on them by staff. 680 News Time 1237. Mayor John Tory says the allegations against a bylaw officer accused of threatening and racially profiling two black women at an Etobicoke Park are extremely disturbing, and says an independent investigation is now necessary to ensure that the general public is satisfied that the incident will be reviewed objectively.
Without prejudging what they're going to find, anything that involves intimidating or threatening or engaging in any kind of profiling or racial discrimination in our city has always been unacceptable to the city government and to the people of Toronto, and we will sort of have that as our guiding light going forward, and we'll see what the investigation produces.
A video posted online shows two black women accusing a city bylaw officer of threatening to shoot them after they allegedly jumped a fence and trespassed at Centennial Park. Meantime, in the United States, a former Atlanta police officer is facing charges in connection with the fatal shooting of in a remarkable twist. The other officer at the scene is now a state witness. As 680's Phil Martino tells us, this all comes just 5 days after the 27-year-old Brooks was shot in Atlanta. Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard says Rayshard Brooks, who was shot in the back during an attempted arrest, posed no deadly threat. Now, former Atlanta police officer Garrett Rolfe has been charged with felony murder and 10 other offenses in connection with his death. Devin Brosnan, the other police officer on scene, also faces 3 charges, including aggravated assault. But there's more.
We have had something quite remarkable that happened in this case, and it involves the testimony of the other officer, Devin Brosnan.
Yeah, but this is the other case where they just shot the guy taking the video just got charged with murder, right?
To testify on behalf of the state in this case.
Rolfe has already been fired, and Brosnan has been put on administrative duty. I'm Phil Martino. Starting
Can
today,
you make
friends
some
and family
photocopies for me
loved
of some blank pieces of
long-term care
fake
retirement
paper?
homes in the province. It comes with some strict guidelines, though, to protect the safety of residents, staff, and visitors. Long-term care homes will now be allowing outdoor visits of one person per resident each week at a minimum, while retirement homes are set to resume indoor and outdoor visits in designated areas, resident suites, or where proper physical distancing can be followed. The homes must also not be in a current outbreak. They must maintain the highest infection prevention and control standards, and they have to have a process in place for communicating visitor protocol. The majority of deaths from COVID-19 in the province have been residents of long-term care and residential homes. Sick Kids Hospital has been working on new recommendations for the province. The hospital has released a comprehensive report looking at the impacts of the pandemic on children physically, but also mentally, socially, and how it's affected learning.
All their friends are on their
President
phones
Dr.
already.
Ronald Cohn says when you consider that the science shows the cases of COVID-19 are extremely low in children, and that they are not super spreaders of the virus, schools should reopen in September.
The impact on the mental, behavioral, and developmental health of children not going to school, not being exposed to in-person teaching,
watching groups like you around the world.
Peers is something that myself and many of my colleagues in pediatrics are literally losing sleep.
But it comes with a series of recommendations. Dr. Michelle Science says keeping a mask on students doesn't make sense.
In younger children, masks can be irritating, which may lead to increased touching of their face or eyes or nose, which could increase the risk of infection.
You're so good at what you do. Why am I still?
Says he will follow the lead of medical experts, including Sick Kids.
That's why you gotta let shit go.
You'll hear it here.
First, breaking news when it happens.
On 680 News.
Now, the 680 News gas price update and process, the price went up 1 cent at midnight to just under $1.02 a liter at most GTA stations. Traffic and weather together next. 680 News time, 12:40.
White doctors think they know everything. They drop the dead around 55.
The best thing that ever happened to me. And the best part about being a father, Longo's annual Father's Day Lobster Fest. Fresh New Brunswick lobster, and ready to crack. Pair them with their AAA certified Angus beef steaks for a fabulous serve and turf feast. Dad's sure to give it 2 claws up. Hashtag dad joke. For quality that meets your family standards, trust ours.
Hey, when you say ask daddy, dad joke, that is a dad joke. Oh, hey, I hate racists. I'm so racist, I hate racists. I don't even gather all these racists up.
What's wrong with most frequent traffic reports? Here's Craig here.
This report is brought to you by Shoppers Drug Mart. So a bunch of construction out there. We have some full ramp closures as well. The Trafalgar, southbound Weston Churchill, Mississauga Road, and the Mavis ramps to the East 401 shut down. Eastbound 401 ramp 2 here, Ontario has been closed. East of Kipling over to the Allen, the express lanes have been shut down, but the collectors are moving well now. We also have approaching Curtis Road to the 418. Only the right lane is open once again, but it's not too bad through there. Just a bit of a tight fit. Northbound Port Union, we have the Nielsen, Markham, and northbound McCowan ramps to the westbound 401 closed. The westbound 401 ramp to McCowan's also been shut down. We have a stretch of collectors blocked approaching the Warden, approaching Warden to the 404. That's where the collectors are closed. At the 427, only the left lane is open, and it's still slow as you go around here. As you come underneath the 427. Just a slight delay now. It's getting much better, but down to a single lane, so that's the reason for the slow travels through here. Southbound Mississauga Road and southbound Weston Churchill ramps to the West 401 also shut down. Northbound 427 ramps to Finch and Highway 7 fully closed. We also have the eastbound 403 closed at Dundas. For the overnight period, you can use Winston Churchill to get onto the eastbound 403. This Saturday to Wednesday, visit Shoppers Drug Mart for the bonus redemption event and get more for your points. A Shoppers Drug Mart exclusive. Restrictions apply. Details in store. Your next report is at 12:51 with the forecast. Here's Adam Stiles.
29, feeling like 31. That's the story today. More sunshine expected. Our ridge of high pressure keeping that sinking motion in the atmosphere, keeping us virtually cloud-free. We'll see temperatures overnight down to 17 degrees. Now, tomorrow, we're going to see a little moisture sneaking in from the south. Not a lot, but what it will do is give the possibility of some lake breeze convergence that could lead to a couple of pop-up thunderstorms into the afternoon. Tomorrow's high temperature, 29. Most of the GTA won't see it.
Clear sky and 18 degrees. Similar conditions at Pearson Airport and 20 degrees. 680 News time, 12:43.
We know you've been spending a lot of time at home and may need to update your space. Lazy Boy is now open to bring the comfort, quality, and style of Lazy Boy to your home. Shop safely in store. Book a personal, private, or virtual shopping appointment with a team member or designer today. Hundreds of products are available for immediate safe home delivery or curbside pickup at 9 stores in the GTA plus Barrie and Kitchener. We're also extending an amazing reopening offer to double scratch and save up to 50% off your entire Lazy Boy purchase, including
clearance.
Ontario, you're making a difference. Continue our efforts to protect each other. Get tested if you're worried you may have COVID-19 or have been exposed to the virus. Practice physical distancing. Stay 2 meters apart. Wear a face covering when physical distancing is a challenge. And continue to wash hands frequently, inside or out. Stay safe. Save lives. Learn more at ontario.ca/coronavirus. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
This is All News Radio, 680 News.
It's 18 degrees and clear in downtown Toronto. Good morning from the 680 News Broadcast Center. I'm Veronica Thor. Here's the top stories this hour. We're coming together to pass a multi-billion-dollar spending bill in an effort to help Canadians and businesses alike weather the COVID-19 pandemic. NDP leader Jeudi kicked out of the House of Commons on Wednesday for calling a Bloc Québécois MP a racist, claiming he blocked a motion to combat racism in the RCMP. Singh says he refuses to apologize. And coming up after sports,
who was the one that made up the story about
more
coming up with all these
information about the
plans
helicopter crash that killed NBA superstar Kobe Bryant. 680 News Time, 12:45.
That's wrong.
Which means it's time for 680 Sports from Sportsnet 590 The Fan. Here's Rob Wong.
There looked to be quite a bit of optimism with reports saying that Major League Baseball and its players have the framework agreed upon for a deal. But the Athletics' Ken Rosenthal says the players don't think they do. The latest proposal by the owners is for a 60-game season starting July 19th. The players would be paid their full prorated salaries. The issue, Rosenthal says, is the union does not view 60 games as enough of an increase from the 50-odd number the league could impose to pass on a potential agreement this week. The 271, as for the WTA Tour, will resume their schedule August 3rd in Italy at the Palermo Open. And in soccer, the Premier League minutes returned with a pair of matches. Manchester City took down Arsenal 3-0, while Sheffield United and Aston Villa finished in a scoreless draw in League 12. Sports at 15 and 45, past every hour or anytime at sportsnet.ca/590.
680 News Time, 12:47.
Superfan with a super deal. Our biggest construction sale is on now. Don't wait for 6 months on all new cars. Your safety is our #1 priority. We have masks and gloves ready for you. We sanitize every hour. We maintain social distance and payment for 6 months on all new cars. Shifting to drive at non-part
This has got to be a Dutch, but I don't have a Dutch dictionary. But my mom probably does. This is probably why I don't.
Appointment today.
It's got to be B-R-A-A-I. Fuck off. This connection is unstable because we don't like
and raising donations for frontline workers to ensure the most important connections can always be made.
And I'll huff and puff and I'll... She's sleeping at ease. Have a good shift.
Yeah, so for 2 hours, no problem. All of a sudden my internet's still good. It is
Donate today at frontlinefund.ca.
a conduit that is encased in concrete straight to an underground vault with the switch, and then that
There's
runs
new
straight to the
information
CO.
about what might have
That's 2
caused the
blocks away. You
helicopter
guys
crash
are
that killed
retarded.
Kobe Bryant.
The information is in a 1,700-page report